Hello, boys and girls. It's a wonderful Sunday. The NBA season. Oh, sorry, my mic is off. Hello, boys and girls. The NBA season is over. The Orlando Magic are heading to the playoffs. How the Orlando Magic announced their arrival with a humongous win. We're live tonight on YouTube as well as X Spaces. Let's hit that brand new intro music. It's time for Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is April 14th, 2024, a day that will live in, I don't know if infamy is the right word. It might be infamy if you're some teams in this league, but it's a day of celebration as the Orlando Magic clinch their spot in the Eastern Conference playoffs with a 113-88 win over the Milwaukee Bucks. We're going to go over everything in that game and how the Magic announced their arrival. We'll take some of your questions here on YouTube as well as in the X Spaces I have set up through @OMagicDaily. We'll talk a little bit about the Cleveland Cavaliers, who the Magic will be facing this weekend, and so much more. I'm waiting for the rooms to fill up. We'll get into it here in just a moment. But first, I got to pay some bills. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and board games are how I get it out. And I'm a big fan of Monopoly and Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. I'll probably be doing that right after if I haven't done so already. Okay, the rooms are starting to fill up. I'm going to get to all of your questions and comments here in just a moment. This is a mailbag episode. We'll be on for the next hour here on YouTube as well as on the X Spaces. And the X Spaces will cut me off at an hour, so I'll be very mindful of my time. But let's start here. We got to start with what happened in the game itself. And I've always been someone that believes Game 82 is always a reflection of your season to that point. Your final game of the season always seems to reflect everything that you've learned and everything that you've understood throughout the course of the entire season. I really do believe that. And we saw in this game, the Magic have to grind and have to find their way out of the hole. They once again dug themselves an 11-point hole early. Milwaukee was going for it. The Bucks wanted the 2 seed. They wanted to win this game. The Magic found themselves in a hole early, and I think it would have been very, very easy at that point to splinter. For Paolo to try to do a little too much to get himself back and to get himself going and into the game. For guys to go a little wild, to do a little too much defensively. And that's what they did against the Sixers early on. That's what they did against the Rockets, against the Bucks. When things got hard, under this pressure cooker the Magic had been in over the last week, the Magic, I don't want to say splintered. I think there was always good intention, but they struggled. They struggled to rise to the occasion. Today, though, they did not. Today, they understood, hey, Milwaukee's hitting some shots. We can live with that. They understood, hey, we're missing some shots. We will get that fixed. We will get that correct. We will get that fixed. They understood that we're fouling a little too much. Back off the fouling and we'll be fine. The Magic were doing a lot of really good things. Even though they were down 11, Milwaukee was getting out in transition after the Magic's misses, beating the Magic before they could get their defense set. But the Magic understood, as long as their defense was set, they were able to get stops. And eventually things started to turn around. In the second quarter, the Orlando Magic outscored the Bucks 25-12, completely flipped the game on its head like they've done so many times this season. And they showed their resiliency through it all. They look like the better team. And Orlando answered the call. They answered the bell every single time. It was Jonathan Isaac getting blocks. It was Jalen Suggs digging in for steals. And eventually, the shots did start to fall because Milwaukee couldn't get the ball moving. The defense fed the offense. This is Magic basketball. This is how the Orlando Magic have to play. This is how they've won 47 games this year, a 13-win improvement from last year. So the Magic announced their arrival with a raucous game, with a game where they forced the Bucks into all of their worst habits, jacking up threes, having to take mid-range jumpers, relying on Damian Lillard's isolation or Giannis Antetokounmpo's isolation. Giannis didn't play in this game, obviously. The Magic limited fast breaks. They made their shots. They limited their turnovers, or if they did turn the ball over, they were dead ball turnovers. And Orlando put themselves in this position to win the game. This was a pronouncement. After a week of frustration, after a week of struggle, the Magic announced themselves as a team to be reckoned with. Maybe not this year, but they are a team that's going to figure things out, that has the poise, that has the composure, that can fight back. You will not put this team down. They are going to outwork and out-energize you throughout the course of an entire game. This is who the Orlando Magic are. And that's how they won this game. That's how they put the finishing touches on this victory. Orlando did the job. Plain and simple, Orlando did the job. And that's who this team has been all year. Like I said, I tend to think the last game is always a reflection of the season as a whole. And Orlando's been dealt a bad hand at times. A lot of injuries to the wrong guys. Obviously, the terrible shooting. But they answered the call. Every time they found a way to grind themselves back in the game, to drag you down into the dirt with them, and to just embrace this physicality and this style of play. That's who the Magic have been all year long. And they showed it again at this, game 7 type play, this game 7 type action. They showed it to us again. They showed us who they really are. And look, they're young. They're going to make mistakes. There's still a lot to clean up. We're going to get into a little bit about the playoff series here toward the end of the show. I'm going to take some of your questions here in a minute too. The Magic, and we got a few questions here as well. We'll get to the Jonathan Isaac thing and all that. The Magic did it. This is who they are. This is what makes them special, as they are extremely resilient. They are committed defensively. They're committed to each other. And when things are rolling for them, things are really rolling. How did the Magic turn this into as much as a 30-point lead and a complete laugher? It's because they just tightened the screws on the Bucks over and over again. The Bucks, they might have gotten a run from Chris Middleton or a little run from Damian Lillard where maybe they lost some discipline and fouled a shooter. But Orlando did not waver from who they are at any point in this game. That's what makes this Magic team special. That's what makes this Magic team a playoff team. That's what makes this team so successful. And obviously, this is a great day. This is a fun day. As Jamal Mosley said after the game, we should celebrate this. We should enjoy this today, maybe a little bit tomorrow. Magic don't practice tomorrow. They don't play till Saturday now. We should enjoy this and enjoy what this season has represented before we get to the very hard work that's coming up with the playoffs. I already see some questions about the playoffs. We're going to talk about those. I'm going to take some of your questions. I see a couple questions here in our YouTube comments. If you're on the X Spaces and you have a question, go ahead and put a speaker request in. I'll take some questions there as well. We'll talk a little bit about the series against the Cavaliers today. We'll start taking an early look at that. We're going to get to all that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at Game Time. If I can find my banner here, there it is. There's my banner. MLB season started. If you're looking to go to Tampa, to St. Pete to watch the Rays, if you're like me and you were thinking about going to the Marlins game on Tuesday, well, you still can go to the Marlins game on Tuesday. Brightline will take you down there, but you don't need to watch you don't need to worry about the Magic playing in Miami like I was throughout the morning until the Magic took care of their business against the Bucks. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. I love Game Time. I've used Game Time to buy tickets before. I still go to some games as a fan. I've actually looked, and the Guardians are in town in Cleveland over the weekend, so I might be taking a Cleveland Guardians game while I'm over in Cleveland for the playoff series. I'm going to use Game Time to get to the game. That's the only way I would know how to get to the game. And I love them because they give you the digital view of your seats. They solve any problems that you might have directly. They are the best. I love Game Time when I have to buy tickets to any event. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Today's episode of Locked On Magic also brought to you by our friends at Monopoly Go. I don't like to think I'm a competitive person. I tend to like everyone to get along, but when we're playing a game, when I'm playing 2K, whenever I'm playing a video game or any type of board game, I want to win. I like to win. I may not sweat it so much when I lose, but oh boy, I'm going to try and compete, and I'm going to try and win, and certainly I'm going to try and do my best. Well, we all have a competitive side, and my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded more than 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with your friends. You can charge them rent on iconic properties just like classic Monopoly, but now you can also rob their vaults for riches for yourself. And the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just your competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in timed tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. It's Locked On NFL Mock Draft Live coming up on April 17th at 7 Eastern Time. Streaming on Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on April 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft on April 17th at 7 Eastern Time, streaming live on Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. We are going to go through the box score real fast, talk a little bit about the Orlando Magic's game against the Milwaukee Bucks. But really what I'm looking for in this part of the show, in this segment, because we'll start getting into the playoff matchup here in a minute, is your questions. Questions about the season, questions about what you saw today, questions about the playoff series. This episode is for you. So if you're listening on X Spaces, go ahead and put in a speaker request. I've got some comments here on the YouTube page. And let's start with a couple from Garrett Scott Haywood. He asks, should we start J.I. against Cleveland? And look, this was the big news of the day. The Orlando Magic, with Wendell Carter dealing with back spasms, decided to start Jonathan Isaac at center. And I think most of us felt like coming out of Friday's game against the Sixers, and I think we were all leaning this way. The Magic need to maximize the minutes that they get from Jonathan Isaac, and they need to figure out how to do it. Now, I would argue Cleveland may not be the greatest matchup to do that. They found a way to do it with Brook Lopez on the Milwaukee Bucks. The Magic were much more intent on switching rather than playing pick and roll straight up in this game than they were in Wednesday's game. That was a good adjustment. I thought the Magic switched very, very, very smoothly and easily, and that enabled them to clog the paint a little bit. It created some mismatches with Brook Lopez in the post, but he was never going to get the ball enough down there to pummel you. They were able to pressure the ball a lot more. And so Jonathan Isaac's presence really did make a difference. I am curious if that's something the Magic will do against the Cavs. Isaac's stat line's not super impressive. A couple Bucks fans that I follow on X, we're all like, if the Magic do end up playing the Bucks in the playoffs, whether Jonathan Isaac makes threes is going to be a big part of the series. And that's still going to be a big part of the series. He was just 4 for 11, 2 for 7 from 3, just 10 points in the game. Had 8 rebounds, though, and blocked 3 shots. To say the least, Jonathan Isaac's defense was the biggest factor in this game. He changed the game defensively in that second quarter. Milwaukee scored only 12 points in the second quarter. Orlando does not get back into this game, does not win this game without Jonathan Isaac. Isaac played 26:09, 26 minutes, 9 seconds. That's going to be how, regardless of whether Isaac starts or not, Jonathan Isaac has to play. The numbers say it. The Magic are a significantly better team on defense, not so much offensively, but on defense, they are a significantly better team with Isaac. That is the core of who they are. He just makes plays that makes everybody better. The Magic have their bet, among the Magic's rotation players, Jonathan Isaac is by far the most impactfully positive player on the team by on-court net rating. I don't know if Jonathan Isaac starts against Cleveland, but he's going to have to play nearly 30 minutes a game if the Magic are going to be serious about winning this series. Garrett Scott Haywood further asked, how deep is our playoff rotation? Will it shrink to 9? I do think it's going to shrink to 9 very quickly. I suspect that, we'll get to a little bit more about the series here in a minute. I've seen a couple questions and Janine Richmond also asked about Jonathan Isaac starting. So I don't want to ignore that. I think that we will see the Magic kind of game 1 have a little bit of a feeling out. And look, Jamal Mosley's a rookie coach. I expect him to make some rookie mistakes. He made a huge rookie mistake in this game with the coaching decision, keeping an all bench lineup out to start the second quarter when Damian Lillard was out and you had a chance to pick up on the lead down 8. That was a huge mistake. They were lucky to break even, in my opinion. And again, Magic ended up winning, so no one's going to be super, super complaining about that. But Orlando has to make sure that one of Paolo Banchero or Franz Wagner are on the floor at all times. And it might end up being you have to have one of those two and one of Suggs and Isaac on the floor at all times when we get to the playoffs. You look at the box score here. Markelle Fultz, 1 for 1, 2 points, played only 5:58, played only 6 minutes in this game. To me, Jamal Mosley said after the game, this was like game 7. We've played 3 game 7s in a row. If this is like game 7, Markelle Fultz was unplayable. And I think we've known that's probably going to be the case for a while. But again, it certainly looks like Markelle Fultz is not going to be part of this rotation and part of kind of the big factors in this team once we get serious here, once we get to the playoffs. Again, I just kind of previewing the playoffs a little bit. We'll talk more specifically about the Cavs here in a minute. Or in a moment. I do expect the Magic to shorten their rotation a little bit. And again, I think we can kind of see where the holes are. They just got to make sure their impact players are on the floor. Having said that, kudos to Jamal Mosley. Tried something different with Jonathan Isaac at center. And like we were all saying, J.I. is going to need to play as much as he can. Absolutely needs to play as much as he can. Wendell Carter came off the bench, played only 14-17. I know he's dealing with the back spasms. He will now have the whole week to get treatment and get that right. Perfect 3 for 3, 1 for 1 from 3, 7 points. The Magic were plus 27 in his minutes. So just a little sprinkle of Wendell Carter went such a long way. And, we may talk a little bit more about this tomorrow. Just a truly selfless moment. Wendell Carter was set to check back in with about 5 minutes left in the second quarter. He walked back to the bench and told coach, no, let it ride. Let these guys ride. And that ended up being the right decision. He came back in with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter or in the second quarter. The Magic were able to continue expanding their lead. They took a 5-point lead into the locker room. They have the players have a good feel, and it was a good choice by Jamal Mosley to trust that they would have it. We're going to keep going through the box score a little bit more here, but if you have a comment, please feel free to leave a comment. I'm going to try and get to all of them here. We'll talk about the Cavs. We'll talk more specifically about the Cavs. I see a lot of questions about the series, so we will We will definitely get to the series specifically here in our third segment. But if you're on the X Spaces and you have a question or comment, feel free to make a speaker request. I'll try and get to them as they come up as well. Going through the rest of the box score, though, I want to say, like, everyone was very critical of Paolo Banchero coming out of the game on Friday, and I was a little less critical of him. I was like, look, he didn't have a shot going. I thought he tried to take the right shots. I thought he tried to do the right things. He found ways to get others involved. Obviously, when you're in a must-win game like that, you need production. And that was the only thing that I felt, really deeply was, okay, that's the problem. You got to have production. You got to produce. That was the only thing for me. But today I thought he really stepped up. Finishes with 26 points, 8 for 19 shooting, 2 for 6 from 3, 8 for 9 from the foul line, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. He did have 3 turnovers, so he's still making some mistakes. But I love that Paolo got downhill, forced his way to the line, really put pressure on the Bucks defensively. And look, Milwaukee was loading up on him. Orlando did, I think, a much better job freeing up space and clearing space for him quicker so Paolo could attack quickly. And honestly, that's going to be the big thing for him in the playoffs. Look, Cleveland's got size. Jared Allen's a great rim protector, great defender. Evan Mobley is a very versatile defender. I believe they usually have him guarding Franz Wagner, though. So it'll be interesting to see, matchup-wise. And, we'll do plenty of preview for the Cavs here. So we're all just kind of hinting at what's coming here. We're all obviously very, very excited about that. We'll see how Cleveland decides to guard Paolo and Franz. Because they got to make some choices. And that's, that's going to be that's the advantage the Magic have, is they're going to force Cleveland to make some choices on where to deploy their defenders. Do they, are they going to have to sacrifice a little bit of shooting with Max Strus to play Isaac Okoro? And Isaac Okoro is too small to guard Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero long-term too. So there's some interesting choices that Cleveland's going to have to make here. But I love that Paolo tried to get downhill. He did settle for jumpers a little bit too much, but his offense was keeping the team alive throughout the first quarter. He kind of had the thankless job of being the offense when the Magic were down. Without that, the Magic don't have a chance to win this game. Without that, the Magic are blown out, and we're talking about playing the Miami Heat on Tuesday rather than playing the Cleveland Cavaliers on Saturday. Just think about that sentence. The Miami Heat on Tuesday or the Cleveland Cavaliers on Saturday. Playing the Cavs on Saturday is a lot. That's a big difference. It's unbelievable. We were talking with Wendell Carter after the game, and I even mentioned that it's you happy that you're playing Saturday instead of Tuesday. He's like, yeah, these guys need a couple days to get their bodies right for the playoffs too. And that rest is huge. We can't underscore how much just having some days off, a day off their legs on Monday. They don't have to practice. They don't have to travel tomorrow. Having all that is such a big deal. I love what Paolo did. I thought he slowed down a little bit in the third quarter and the fourth quarter as the Magic were really ramping ahead, but I thought his defense was mostly solid throughout the night. I thought that, he set the Magic up to have this humongous game. Franz Wagner was the hammer that just finished the nail here. 25 points, 10 for 21 shooting. He missed his first 5 shots, so he was 10 for 16 after that. Missed some threes. We're living with that. 4 for 4 from the foul line, 5 rebounds, 3 steals. Franz was excellent on defense. When the Magic were able to create, Doc Rivers actually mentioned this before the game. The Magic's fast break is really built on Franz Wagner. So Franz getting downhill is such a big factor for this Magic team. I already see a question about the Cavs fast play style. We'll get to the Cavs series here in a minute, but Wagner being able to get downhill is such a huge deal. And the Magic were able to kind of push the pace, get him downhill. And that's one of the reasons the Magic won this game. Plain and simple. The Magic won this game because they were able to kind of turn defense into offense. They had 25 fast break points, 25 fast break points. That's having a good time. They actually outscored Milwaukee 25-0 in fast break points. That's a huge deal. Turned 17 turnovers into 24 points. That's like what Milwaukee did to Orlando on Wednesday. Orlando had 14 turnovers, but only 11 points. A lot of their turnovers were 24-second shot clock violations. They were ball out of bounds, bad pass out of bounds. Like you can dead ball turnovers are fine. The way you beat Orlando is you get down the court before their defense can get set. And that's previewing a question we're going to get to here in a moment. Not a lot of other scoring elsewhere. Cole Anthony, 13, Mo Wagner, 10, stuff that we usually expect from them. Damian Lillard finished with 16, but on 2 for 14 shooting. He got 12 to line 12 for 13 times. The fouling was really the only issue defensively. Orlando was just hounding them defensively, and it was just a really, really, really fun game. The Orlando Magic defeat the Milwaukee Bucks 113-88. They will start the playoffs on Saturday. That part we know as we're recording this here at about 8:30 in the evening. They will start the playoffs on Saturday against Cleveland Cavaliers up in Cleveland. So we'll talk a little bit more about what to look for in that series with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Plus, take your questions if you have them. Leave your comments on YouTube or make a speaker request here on the X Spaces. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks. Before they were kicked out of Florida, which we're all very, very upset about here at the Locked On Magic and Orlando Magic Daily offices, Prize Picks was the way to play fantasy sports. The number one fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the playoff action. Win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during the NBA postseason. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey, and college basketball. Well, not so much college basketball anymore. Entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Really, it's that simple. When I was playing it, it was almost a pretty, simple winner. All you had to do was get 4 out of 6 correct or 3 out of 4 correct, and you would get your money back. It's not like the other daily fantasy games where you got this confusing scoring system, confusing salary cap, and you're playing in these giant player pools where you don't have a lot of chances to win. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, go to Prize Picks, download the app, use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Okay, everyone is asking about it. I'm sure a lot of you on the X Spaces are waiting for the right time to ask questions, to jump in here. So if you're in the X Spaces, please feel free to make a speaker request or whatever you need to do to jump in. I'm here to take your questions. We'll stay on the air here for about an hour or until questions get exhausted. I've got a couple comments on YouTube that I do want to hit as well as we begin to look ahead to this series against the Cleveland Cavaliers. The first question I want to get to is kind of that question that I started hinting at earlier. It's from Colin Rose. He says, do you think Cleveland's fast play style will throw us off balance? It did a little bit with the Kings. I would note with the Kings that the Magic went to double overtime and lost on a foul in the last second. So I don't necessarily think fast pace bothers the Magic. But like I said, the way to beat this Magic defense, and Cleveland certainly knows this, the way to beat this Magic defense is to get down the court before the Magic can get their defense set up. If the Magic get their defense set up in the half court, they're more likely than not going to stop you. I think since the All-Star break, the Magic's defensive rating in the half court is below a point per possession. So if you want to beat Orlando, you got to be you either got to 5-out them. I think Orlando still struggles a little bit with 5-out defenses, and they found a little bit of a fix in this game against Milwaukee. The Bucks shot 7 for 27 from 3. There's some open threes there, but Orlando generally did a very good job preventing 3-point attempts, and they just switched everything, and that became their mode. And Milwaukee only had 32 points in the paint, so they're still able to defend the paint. So there's definitely a little bit of that. Cleveland's not going to play a lot of 5-out. Maybe they'll go to Evan Mobley at center if they have to match up a little bit. Jared Allen is a nominal 3-point threat, not a great 3-point shooter, not really a volume enough shooter to be of that much concern. So I do think that is something to consider. But again, I think Cleveland is going to try and run a little bit. Let me pull up my stat sheet here. Let's go here. I ordered it by defensive rating. Cleveland for the year in pace is actually near the bottom. So Cleveland actually runs a much slower offense than that. Orlando's pace this year is 97.37 possessions per 48 minutes, 27th in the league. So Orlando likes to play a very limited possession game. Cleveland is the same way, 97.62 possessions per 48 minutes. So I don't think Cleveland is necessarily trying to play fast. Look, everyone is trying to run when they can, and especially here in the playoffs, you're going to want to get as many easy baskets as you can, especially against two really good defenses. Orlando and Cleveland are very, very similar. Orlando is a 110.8 defensive rating that ended up third in the NBA. Cleveland's at 112.1. They were seventh in the NBA. The difference is Orlando is a 112.9 offensive rating and Cleveland's a 114.7 offensive rating, which isn't that good, by the way. 114.7 is 16th in the league. This is a bottom half of the league offense. However, we're in the playoffs now. It's not about your ranking among the rest of the league. It's about the matchup. And so if you're Orlando, the concern is their guards. Their guards and their interior size. My initial look at this series, or my initial thought on this series, is this series doesn't come down to pace. Like, both teams are going to want to play slow and kind of be methodical with their possessions, which I think plays to the Magic's hands. When you look at the teams at the bottom of the league in pace. So bottom of the league in pace, New York Knicks 3-1, Miami Heat 1-3, Chicago Bulls 4-0, Denver Nuggets 2-0, Brooklyn Nets 2-2, Cleveland Cavaliers 2-2, Minnesota Timberwolves 1-1, Charlotte Hornets 3-1, Portland Trailblazers 2-1, Portland Trailblazers 2-0. Those are your bottom 10 teams in the league in pace. The only team the Magic had a losing record this year against in the bottom of the league in pace was the Miami Heat. What concerns me in this series, and what I think is actually the key to this series, is going to be the three-point shooting. And I know everyone's going to hate me saying that, but look, Orlando had a game this year where they went, 2 for 23 on threes against the Cavs. That was the first game against Cleveland, and Paolo had 40 points that game, kept Orlando in that game. They still had a chance to win it. But we all came away from that game being like, oh, shooting's going to be a real problem. And they're just going to have a night every so often where they don't hit any threes. That one was a particularly bad one. It was the worst three-point shooting night of the season. But I think I went back and looked, and, according to NBA.com, like 19 of the 23 threes were probably good shots. And the Magic came out saying, yeah, 19 of those, a lot of those threes were good looks. We were happy with the looks that we got in that game. Then there was the loss in January, where the Magic got beat by 30 by Cleveland. And that was when Sam Merrill hit 5 threes in the second quarter. Cleveland has shooters. Max Strus, George Niang, Sam Merrill, Donovan Mitchell is a big-time scorer, and I think that's going to be a big difference in this game if Mitchell's healthy. Obviously, the Cavs have injury issues. Stefan actually asked this, or Stefan asked this on the YouTube comments, saying, do the Cavs still have injury issues? Everyone's healthy for Cleveland. Everyone is playing, but Donovan Mitchell definitely does not look right. And obviously he's going to have now the week to get ready for Saturday. He's a big-time playoff performer. We know he's a big-time playoff performer. Jalen Suggs is going to have his work cut out for him. Stopping Donovan Mitchell or slowing him down is going to be a big factor in this series. Make Darius Garland be the one that beats you. And even, Darius Garland's also going to be a real big challenge too. So, let's not pretend Cleveland doesn't have a lot of offensive weapons, even though their offense wasn't great this year. Donovan Mitchell definitely does not look right. I would say that his knee, whatever his lower body issue is, he has not looked fresh at this point. Now, again, we will see what happens and what they look like this weekend. There's a long way to go before Saturday. But to me, Darius Garland's a good shooter. Evan Mobley is not a willing three-point shooter, but he's a capable three-point shooter. What worries me in this series, and what I think is ultimately the biggest X factor in this series, there's two. Turnovers. Magic are a high turnover team. If the Magic limit their turnovers, they'll be fine. The other one I would say is the Cavs three-point shooting. If this becomes if the Cavs are able to make three-point shots, then I think the Magic will run into a little bit of trouble. Brian Dowdy asked a more informational question. I'm going to get to that before I get to hear Eli on the X Spaces. How can we watch playoff games if we don't have NBA TV? At this point, we don't know what channel all the games are on, or the time or date of all the games except for Saturday's game. But all the games will be televised, at least nationally, on NBA TV. Every game will also still be on Bally Sports Florida. So if you live locally here in Orlando or you have the Bally Sports app, first round is still on local TV. So we will still get David, Jeff, Dante, Kendra. We will still get all of them. But yes, this is probably looking like the NBA TV series in the first round, which is always the one to go with. Let's jump in with a speaker request here. Let me make sure I know how to do that. Let's hear from Eli here. Eli, how's it going? Eli, you are on mute, my friend.
Oh, hey, can you hear me, Phil?
I can hear you. It's all good. It happens.
Cool. Thanks for having me on. Hey, I just had a question on. You saw Gary Harris on Dame a lot today. Do you think we might see Gary on Donovan Mitchell like a significant amount in this series? Maybe to take some pressure off Jalen, especially like maybe to keep him out of foul trouble. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first off, there's no taking a day off when the other option is to have Jalen Suggs guard Darius Garland. Cleveland is like the opposite of Orlando's roster construction. Like they're big, Jared Allen and Evan Mobley are great defensive presences, the same way Jalen Suggs and Gary Harris are great defensive presences. And Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are like their Paolo and Franz. So it's almost like a theory of the case. Is it better to have offensive-minded forward defensive guards or offensive guards defensive-minded forwards? That's kind of, I think, the existential question of the series, if you will. This Magic team likes to switch a lot. So I think saying that, Jalen will guard Donovan exclusively or Gary will guard Garland exclusively, I don't think it's quite like that, but I think you do have a point. I think that it might be a hot hand thing where, maybe they start the game with Gary on Mitchell. If Mitchell gets going, they switch Jalen onto him, or if Garland somehow gets it going, they switch Gary. They switch those defenders just to mix things up. And I know there's a lot of criticism of Gary Harris. I see some of it on the YouTube comments here, and a lot of it's deserved. Gary Harris was 1 for 4 again from 3 points for him. Played some great defense though. Was really good defensively on Damian Lillard after, Suggs got in a little bit of foul trouble in the first half. Yes, the Magic need Gary Harris to make threes, but he still has a lot of value on defense. And I think the Magic like to have that option to be able to go to both. And I think that will be one of the advantages the Magic have in this series is they have 2 very good defensive guards who may not need a lot of help. Who, if Paolo and Franz show on Garland and Mitchell, they're either going to be able to switch it straight up and you can just have Franz guard whoever that is if he's on Mobley, and I think actually like one of the things we could see in this series is a lot of possessions, a lot of lineups where you have Suggs, Paolo, Isaac, and Franz, and you run, maybe you have Carter there at center or Harris at the 2. But you could have Franz guard Garland, or you could have Franz take a turn on Mitchell if you want to put some size on him. I think that is one of the things we might see in this series as well. So I think at this juncture, if it were me, I'd start the game with Suggs on Mitchell. But I think one of the advantages the Magic have is they have a lot of options, and you don't stop star players. You slow them down. You confuse them for 2-3 minutes, and those 2-3 minutes are when you push your advantage and you make something happen. That's kind of the game in the playoffs. If we're getting to a last second shot situation, if that's really what we're kind of getting at, I think I have Suggs on Mitchell. And if you need to give Suggs a break, you can easily put Harris on him for a little bit, but Garland's not going to give you much of a break either. That's kind of the stress the Cavs are going to put on the Magic is they're really going to stretch the defensive ability of their guards. Yeah. Let's Eli, do you have another question or should I move on?
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Jalen, I think he should obviously be like the first option there defensively against Mitchell. But yeah, I just liked what I saw from Gary today defensively. I know he kind of sucked from the 3, but
Yeah. I mean, obviously Gary's struggling a little bit from 3 right now. And look, I know I said this a lot with Terrence Ross over the years. Gary Harris is out there to make threes. The Magic need him to make threes, and he's going to have a Gary Clark game or a DJ Augustine game where he hits 2-3 threes, and that's going to be the game the Magic win. The Magic's record when Gary Harris makes 2 threes, like just 2 threes, is excellent. And so, I trust Gary Harris. I absolutely trust Gary Harris, but he's got to make some shots. And I was when we all thought we were playing the Bucks, and I was beginning to talk to some Bucks writers, we were just kind of beginning to go over what this series was going to come down to. And it was literally like, if this guy makes shots, the Magic are a really dangerous team. I'm just like, you can say that about like 2 or 3 guys. You can say that about like 4 or 5 guys on this roster. If they make shots, we're really dangerous, but we're just not going to make shots. We just can't rely on anybody to make shots, 4 out of 7 games right now. And that's going to be the series. I'm gonna go ahead and move on here, Eli. I want to thank you for jumping on here. If you are on the X Spaces and you have a question, go ahead and make a speaker request. Let's get to some more comments here on the YouTube. Alex asked, kind of on this line, Philip, do you think the scouting report is to live with one-on-one defense of Garland Mitchell, keeping them in front, letting them shoot rather than letting the drive and kicks going? I think the Magic will want to be one-on-one as much as possible. Again, like the thing that I fear most in this series is Cleveland's 3-point shooting. Just generally, the less you have to get into rotations, the better. So if you're able to keep those guys in front, get them in the paint, maybe have the big kind of trap them or the big kind of envelop him, the less you kind of come off of Cleveland shooters, I think that's going to be the best ticket for the Magic. Again, like I get terrified. I am still terrified of that Sam Merrill game. And, maybe the Magic can play Sam Merrill off the court with his defense, but that 30-point loss was pretty scarring. And I think Cleveland fans would say, when the Magic beat the Cavs up at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, it was, first game after the All-Star break. That's such a random game anyway. And look, that was a really nice win. I don't want to take anything away from what the Magic did that night. It was the first game after the All-Star break. That's always a random game. You just never know what guys look like coming out of the break. So I don't know how much stock we can put in that. Orlando got a nice win over Cleveland at home at the Kia Center. So these are, I think the general convention is going to be Cavs in 6 or 7. I've seen some Magic fans say Magic in 5, and I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to make my official prediction today. We got a week to get to there. But I would bet that the general convention is going to be favoring Cavs in 6 or 7. Some of that's going to be bad experience. Some of that is going to be, Donovan Mitchell is someone everyone trusts to come up big in big games, at least at this level. Should the Magic be offended that Cleveland kind of tanked their fourth quarter today against Charlotte to make sure they played Orlando? Yes and no. I think Orlando is going to go through some growing pains. I expect there to be a game that Donovan Mitchell wins late. I expect that. I expect, if we're going to map out what this series looks like, I'm expecting a big Paolo game somewhere where he scores 30-something points. But I'm also expecting a game where Paolo struggles to get to 20 and the Magic really struggle in that game. I'm expecting a game that Donovan Mitchell wins late because he's Donovan Mitchell and he's a really good player. And he's done this in the playoffs over and over again. Just ask Joe Ingles. And we'll probably ask Joe Ingles about that later on this week. I'm expecting a game where the Cavs hit a lot of threes. I'm expecting a game where the Magic really struggle to track 3-point shooters and get in trouble for it. I'm expecting a game where the Magic make enough threes. And maybe that's the game that Donovan Mitchell has to win late, but I'm expecting that kind of a game. This is going to be a very interesting matchup. And, I think, there's some people, there's a comment here from Bucciman saying, in terms of favorite matchups for the Magic, Rogue, you have put Cleveland prior to this outcome. I would say Indiana was probably the most favorable matchup out of all the teams that they could have faced. Cleveland and New York are pretty close to me. I think Cleveland is a lot weaker right now just because they've had such a difficult end of the season, but that by no means is saying that Cleveland is an easy matchup. I think Cleveland is still obviously more favorable. Or I would say Cleveland is obviously still the favorite to win this series. Again, do not be offended if you see some Cavs in 5 or, again, Cavs in 6, Cavs in 7, I think is going to be the general convention. I expect the Magic to be competitive in this series. Number one, I think these teams are much closer than they look. I think the experience factor is going to be a big deal in this series. And we saw that throughout this week. The Magic seemed to be kind of buckling a little bit under the pressure. I expect the Magic to win at least one of the games in the Kia Center. Those games might be what determines the series. Because obviously Orlando has to go out and win in Cleveland. That's going to be tough for them. But whether this is a long series or a short series is going to be determined on the Magic's home floor. If the Magic take care of their business at home, they have a shot. Obviously you just never know. But I think that this is a tough matchup in that Cleveland is a really good defensive team. Like, I had Jared Allen with a very good chance to make the All-Star team. I thought that he was playing really, really well. And I really thought, there's a part of me that was scared that Paolo was going to lose his All-Star spot to Jared Allen because, coaches love defense, and Jared Allen is one of the best defensive players in the league. Would not surprise me if he's on an all-defensive team this year. I think that's going to be a big factor, how the Magic challenge the rim and challenge the paint, because this Magic team is all about the paint. They cannot win if they don't win the paint. And so that's going to be, I think, one of the big things for this series as we begin to look ahead at the series is how the Magic defend the three, how the Magic put pressure on the rim, and, whether the Magic can make some shots, because Cleveland is going to load the box. Cleveland is going to put a bunch of guys in front of them and dare the Magic to make threes. We've begun to see that already. And so as we begin to look at the series, I'm expecting very low scores. Would not surprise me if there's a game that's, where both teams are hovering at or below 100. Would not surprise me to see that. But we're going to learn whether this team is ready to step up to the plate, because this is a winnable series. Like, it would not shock me a ton if the Magic win. I don't think the Magic, it would not shock me a ton if the Magic win this series. I think they're very capable of winning the series. But to me, as I begin to think about what needs to happen for the Magic to win, to me, there are more things that the Magic have to do that I'm not sure they can do. There are more things that, to me, that I'm not sure that the Magic have to do that I'm not sure they can do than Cleveland. There are things that I'm sure Cleveland needs to do to win that I think they can do pretty regularly in this series. And so, that's what a playoff series is. That's kind of what it comes down to. But it's going to be a really fun series. This is going to be a fascinating series to watch. It is a great challenge for this Magic team. It is winnable because Cleveland is a team that's full of doubt too. I do my playoff lessons at the end of every season. And the one I wrote about Cleveland was one of my favorite ones to write, because Cleveland has, every aspiring team has kind of a theory of what they're trying to build and a theory of what they think will win in the league. Orlando's theory is, what if we had two 6'10" point guards? Like, what does that look like? That's kind of the Magic's theory for how to build a team here. But Cleveland's theory is, well, can we play big and versatile in this spread it out league? And against New York, they kind of came to the conclusion they didn't have enough shooting. So they went out and got Max Strus. They went out and got George Niang. They picked up Sam Merrill, who's a good, nice pickup. They got better with their shooting. But to me, why they really lost to the Knicks was their size got punked. Like for lack of a better way to phrase it, they got punked. They got beat on the glass by Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson. And this team that built so much of their identity on size couldn't actually rebound. They couldn't actually do the things that big men are supposed to do. And look, Orlando's got to be good on the glass too. They have been good on the glass this year. Despite the perception that they're not, despite the low rebounds from Wendell Carter, this has generally been a good rebounding team. They're going to have to do that because, that is a weakness I think you can take advantage of with Cleveland. I'm just going to look at their stats real fast. Orlando actually finished the league second in defensive rebound rate, 73.7%. Cleveland finished, I'm going to find them here, 14th. So despite all that size, Cleveland's not a good rebounding team. Offensive rebound rate, Orlando was 7th in the league in offensive rebound rate. Cleveland is, where are you, Cleveland? I gotta find you here. Let me find them on my sheet here. Okay, we're just going to do it this way. Cleveland is 22nd. So rebounding is going to be a big factor if Orlando can dominate the glass, and we'll see what they can do. That's going to be a huge factor in this series. Again, it's just it's all these little things that they have to do, and so that would be something on Cleveland's side that Cleveland's going to have to do that I'm not sure they can do. That they've kind of shown this year that they can't do, but they got the size to do it. It's going to be a really, really fascinating series. Just a really, really fascinating series. And again, I think these teams are kind of mirror images of each other. They're both kind of going through the same things. And so it's going to be interesting to see how everything pops up. Again, if you're on the X Spaces, we're going to go here for about another 10 minutes, and then X Spaces is going to cut me off, actually. So I want to make sure if you're on the X Spaces, if you have a speaker request, I'm going to put a priority on those. Get them in if you want to ask a question on the show here. We'll get another one here from Garrett Scott Haywood. He says, if we come home down 0-2, how do you feel? Can we tie 2-2 at home? Yes. And today was proof that they can do that. Today is 100% proof that Kia Center Magic are different than road trip Magic. The Magic finished the year with the, I think, third best home record in the Eastern Conference. Kia Center is a tough place to play. Today was loud. It was waiting for a reason to erupt and to celebrate. They get louder in the playoffs. I'm expecting, and yes, we are not playing the Knicks. We are not playing the Sixers. We're not playing the Heat. We're not playing a team with a fan base that travels. Everyone in that building on next Friday, next Saturday, whenever games 3 and 4 are, everyone in that building is going to be a Magic fan, and it's going to be great. And I know that's something Magic fans are really excited to see. I know the players are really excited to see that. There will not be an invading army coming to Orlando to fill the Kia Center for games 3 and 4. There'll be Cavs fans there. There always are. And please be nice and respectful to them, especially when they bring out Courtney Lee and Michael Petrus and Marcin Gortat, as I hope they do. But I am very confident that Orlando can win their home games. Like I said, I do think this series gets decided at the Kia Center. If the Magic are able to take care of their home games, this is obviously a 7-game series at minimum. If the Magic lose a game at the Kia Center, this could very easily be a 5-game series very, very quickly. This is, that is where they expect to win. That is where they expect to dominate the game. Vibrant Star has an interesting question. Is it possible we may see Goga or Anthony Black replacing Fultz? The answer to that question is I do think it's possible, but I think that's kind of a last resort. That is like an option B, option C. I do think that with Cleveland's size, often playing Mobley and Allen together, if we do see some foul trouble, I think we would see Goga Bitadze come in to deal with Jared Allen. Jared Allen is not much of a shooter, so that's going to keep Goga in the paint, which I think definitely plays more to his hands rather than playing like a Joel Embiid who can spread out, step out a little bit. I think that would work. I think because of Mobley and Allen, if they're both playing well, it would not surprise me to see the Magic go to bigger lineups, go to a 2-big lineup, go to a Mo Wagner, Wendell Carter lineup, go to a Wendell Carter, Goga Bitadze lineup. That would not surprise me either. If they need the size, if they need the help rebounding, they need the help with the presence in the paint. And the same deal with Anthony Black. Honestly, I think the advantage the Magic have to guard Donovan Mitchell and guard Darius Garland is their guards are bigger. Now, can their guards get the stops? Can their guards slow them down in the paint or slow them down? I think that's the question, but the size wears on you. And so I do, and look, Markelle Fultz is still a good defender. Just because his offense is terrible does not mean he's not a good defender. I do think Anthony Black does present another opportunity to throw some more size at these guards and kind of wear them down with size and physicality. So again, foul trouble, the Magic have these guys to go to. The problem with Anthony Black is the same problem, though, you have with Markelle Fultz. It's that defenses don't care if he shoots. And look, Anthony Black, I think, makes shots and has proven himself, or at least shown himself this year to be a better shooter. And so I think that means Anthony Black should be an option in the rotation if the Magic have to go to it, if they need a 9 or 10-man rotation that way. I do think that the Magic need to have Anthony Black available, but And there's always a but. But I don't think it's going to help loosen the defense up in the way that, the reason you take Markelle Fultz out of the lineup is he gives you nothing offensively. Defenses ignore him. They're overloading the paint. You need to loosen that up. Anthony Black doesn't fix that, but I do think Anthony Black is still very much an option to help with the defense. Got a couple comments here, like this one from Jesus Lopez, if I can pull it up here. I hope J.I. starts in game 1. I definitely think that is an option. I think we will see a lot of the big lineup with Jonathan Isaac in there. I think we could very easily see a lot of lineups where Franz Wagner's playing the 2 and he gets the call on Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell. And again, the Magic use their size as an advantage. However, I would, barring Wendell Carter having back spasms issue still, and they need to limit his minutes a little bit for him to play. I do think that the Magic will return to their normal starting lineup for game 1, get a feel for how it looks. And if those Isaac lineups really work, then we see the change. So I think I don't think you need to reinvent the wheel. I don't think you need to reinvent the wheel here. But I do think that we're in the playoffs now. You need to figure out what works and stick to what works. Have a quick hook on things that aren't working, stick to what works. And again, I think Jamal Mosley deserves a little bit of criticism for this. He's been kind of stuck in his regular season rotations. Today was like the first day where he really seemed to like ramp up minutes for guys. Paolo played 35:03. The last 5 minutes were garbage time. So he would have played 40 minutes for the second straight game. They were willing to let him ride and let him get there. So I do think we'll start to see the defense get back to get the rotations get to a playoff level, but I don't think we are quite there yet. I am not seeing any other questions in the YouTube stream. We're coming to the end of my time here on X Spaces. So any last minute speaker requests, now would be the time to get them in. But I want to thank you all for making this live show so successful. I hope everyone enjoyed the last hour, getting to talk, getting to celebrate a little bit of the Magic making the playoffs. We'll obviously get much deeper into the series with the Cleveland Cavaliers here coming up throughout the week. We'll do a crossover episode with our friends with Locked On Cavs, get the direct lowdown with them. We'll hear from the Magic throughout the week. As they get ready to go to Cleveland. I'll be in Cleveland myself for games 1 and 2. So I think this is a really, really exciting and fun moment. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank you all for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic, for joining us on the live show. If you joined us on the live show, whether on X Spaces or on YouTube, I appreciate everyone who put a comment in. I tried to answer as many of them as I could. Tried to eliminate some repeats. Tried to make sure we kind of stayed on topic with whatever we were talking about. But I truly appreciate everyone who interacted with the show today. I will try and go through the comments and grab some that maybe I didn't answer here, answer them in writing. But I appreciate all of you. I hope to do maybe another one of these live episodes toward the end of the season, maybe at some point during the series. But I appreciate everyone who listened. You can, of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey. All from listening to the podcast to your podcast and listening devices. Again, that's Locked On Magic. You can find us as well on YouTube at Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us on Twitter at OMagicDaily. You can, of course, find, if you're on the X Spaces, you know that already, at OMagicDaily. And be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. I truly appreciate all your support. It allows me to travel for these games as well. So I appreciate, again, all of your support. That's going to do it for me today, though. For your next, now that you've listened to us, be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Day 24/7 streaming channel. You can find that on YouTube as well as Amazon Fire TV on the Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. That's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to this episode of Locked On Magic, or watching this episode of Locked On Magic. For Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Phil Rossman-Wright. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.